Welcome to Unleashed with Eva Melton, where we unleash spiritual principles for victorious living.
Hello, it is Eva of the Firm Foundation Church here in Birmingham, Alabama. I hope you're doing great. I am doing great on this day. Wanted to recap a portion of our April preaching and teaching series on change and Bible study, as well as every Sunday morning we were focused on the topic of change. That we know that change is inevitable, it will happen, but we were focused on that change in the areas where we really needed God to move in our lives, and we knew that it was a month that God would bring about some things, and we just wanted to come in agreement, right? Some things, sometimes we have to step back and see where God is moving. They call it tracing the hand of God. But once you see where God is already moving, we come into agreement with where He's already moving and come into an alignment with where He's already moving. And sometimes from there we can just see laws that are already in spiritual principles that are already set into play actually bring about that change. So many times we don't see the change that we want to see because we don't come into agreement with what God is attempting to do. And one of the main ways that we can come into agreement with God is through our mind and our thoughts and our perspective. Because ultimately what we feed our conscious mind eventually seeps down into our subconscious, and what is in our subconscious eventually comes out of our mouth. And that is how even I as a pastor can tell what somebody really is that when they're speaking comfortably and what comes out of their mouth, because that is literally what is in their heart. And so we focused all month long, and we saw some things happen in our lives simply because we came into agreement with what God was already doing. Some people may call it a miracle, but they were not miracles. It was the work of God, and we came into agreement as the Bible tells us to from a spiritual perspective, and we saw things happen in our lives. So I talked about one of those Sundays, changing our perspective. Moses was a great leader, and we know he was used to help change conditions for his people and for the Israelites. But sometimes we forget about those one-on-one conversations that Moses had with God because he felt incompetent and that he did not have what he needed to do, what God was actually asking him to do. But we know that even Moses' upbringing had prepared him to be the one to go back and talk to his people, as well as to talk to Pharaoh about releasing his people. And Moses begins to tell God, why would anybody listen to me? How would they know that I really was sent by you? And God begins to tell Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses says, I have a staff. And he tells him to throw it down, and the staff turns into a snake. Then he tells Moses to put his hand in his pocket, and his hands comes out, and it is white. It's leprous. And he puts it back in, and the hand is healed. The fine point in that we may miss is that God is telling Moses, or asking him, what is in your hand? Asking you today, in regards to what God is asking of you, the next step in your life, down your journey as an individual, what is already in your hands? So many times we can get emotional, worked up over what's next or what God is asking us to do, and we come up with excuses just like Moses. But the question I have is, what is in your hand? So many times God has already prepared us, and we have what we need, and additional things will arrive on the way. What do you have in your hand? And so when I say what's in your hand, what gifts has God already given you that are on the inside of you? What people in your network have sound wisdom to help you, have resources to help you, have connections and doors? I can tell you, call this person or that person. What is already in your hand? And once you realize what that is, I want you to bless it and offer gratitude for what you've already been given. Because gratitude is a way of amplifying what God has already given you. Amplifying what God has already given you. And if you are not grateful for what He's already given you, why should you receive more? But gratitude opens us up on the inside to actually be in a more receptive manner, and it actually takes us up higher in our energy to a more positive energy, to offer gratitude. So many times we can think about the things God has given us, property, land, people, spouses, children, and sometimes those things, we take them for granted, and sometimes those things can be stressful for us, and we don't even think in those moments of stress, this God, thank you. I don't even have to have that, but God, thank you. You trusted me with that. When God trusts you with something, make sure you tell him thank you. So I don't know what the change is in your life, on your path, but it is my prayer that you would come into agreement with what God has already asked of you or has shown you what's next on your journey. But I want to ask you what's in your hand. Yes, we should be asking God to enlarge our territory. I ask him to do it every day. But we also need to honor what he has already given us. And so many times what he's already given us is in people. Don't overlook the people that God has already given you trying to gain something else. God has given you something. Maybe it's a gift that's wrapped deep down on the inside of you as a hidden treasure, waiting to be unleashed to the world. But bless what you already have been given. Bless what you have already been given. Change is happening around us. So I want you to step back and see where God is moving. Be still and know that God is God. And there's some things that are going to happen, whether you're with him or you're not with him. But then there are some things in our lives that require us to come into agreement with him, with our mind, body, soul, finances, any type of energy that we have. Bring ourselves into agreement to that which God has shown us. This has been Pastor Eva of the Firm Foundation Church in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm expecting change. I hope you are.
Thanks for listening to Unleashed with Eva. I hope you were inspired, encouraged, and motivated to tackle a new week. For more information about the show, check out www.evamelton.com.